15, maybe 20 years ago, when the first browsers appeared, Netscape I think was one of the early ones, it was pretty quickly aware that it wasn't very secure. How do you know that the site you thought you went to was the site you intended to go to? Is that really my bank? And so the solution that came up, which was certificate authorities and crypto magic, is what we've been running with for some time, but it's not very good. And very occasionally stories pop up which are deeply disturbing about how the entire security architecture of the internet is being undermined by these breaches. DigiNotar is perhaps the classic there, where a certificate authority got perverted and taken over and started minting fake certificates which were then used to intercept people's traffic. It's terrible. How do you stop that? One of the best ways we know how is to remove all of that certificate infrastructure as standalone and fold it back into the DNS. So the DNS tells me where I want to go, but it also gives me some credentials to apply to where I've got to. Is this really my house? Will the keys match? You ask the DNS and it can tell you, but for that, you need security in the DNS. Same problem, but now sort of one removed. We can build really good security in the DNS because it's a hierarchy. So my parent says I'm good, and I say my children are good, which works fine unless you're the parent of everything, the root. That's the one key we've really got to look after. So 5 years ago, a really good thing happened. In 2011, as I recall, the root got signed with a real key, a key signing key. And we've been running with that ever since. Now, around 14%, it's about 1 in 7 users of the entire internet, use DNS validation. Brilliant. V6 had killed for these numbers. This is fantastically good news. But 5 years ago, they said, look, no key is eternal. It's just a very big prime number. We're going to have to roll it at some point. That was 5 years ago. This is now. We're going to have to roll the key, the one key that locks the internet. Now, we think we're okay, but we're not completely sure. And so for some years now, we've been working through various scenarios of how to roll the key and what it would imply, and trying to see if we can measure in advance whether we're going to cause problems for anyone. And there's two kinds of issues flying around. The first is when you start replacing keys, what we normally do is sort of use the old key to tell everyone the new key is good. And for a little bit of time, the response in the DNS gets larger. How many people don't like a big answer? Well, it's a good number to measure, and we've been measuring that. And we kind of think around 1 to 2% of users aren't really comfortable with a big answer. Will it be fatal? Probably not. But that's sort of where the answer lies. Another part of the question is, will they pick up the new key, old signing new? Some questions are easily measurable. Some questions are just really, really hard. And unfortunately, that one is really, really hard. It looks, unless we get really clever very quickly, that that's one of the few unknowns we're going to have to go with. That when we roll the key, we're not quite sure how many folk won't roll with us. That we'll be stuck in that really bad situation where, because the root doesn't work properly, nothing works. And they'll be left without an internet for a day or two until someone comes to their rescue. Hopefully, we can address these issues before they happen. But it's good to understand the full extent of the downside as we go through this process. Right now, there's a public comment out on the draft plan. By the middle of September, if you have an interest in all things DNS, and everyone should, if you have an interest in all things DNS, you should really look at this plan and apply your own thinking to whether it makes sense to you or not, because certainly we'd value the feedback.